It's Free Pattern Friday, only it's Wednesday, and I have a pattern in my head that it needs to get out of my head and onto paper, and I'm giving this pattern to you for free. So I got this blue jelly roll off of Amazon from Tiny Spool and Company. I thought that this would be absolutely perfect for a baby quilt. What I'm going to do is I'm going to separate this out into 3 piles, light, medium, and dark. So now let's see how fast I can make this quilt. For this pattern, we're also going to use 2.5-ish yards of a white fabric. I'm going to use my 1/4-inch foot to keep everything just lined up. I don't have to do as much thinking using this foot. I'm going to take just any 2 like opposing enough colors and put them right sides together. And we're going to trim off the selvages after we get them all sewed together. So that's not really a priority right now. Since this is serrated or pinked, I'm going to sew on the outside of all of these little bumps. Darker color for me is the top, so I'm going to lay that down with the darker fabric on top. And then I'm going to take my iron and set the seam. You want to flip the darker fabric over and then take your iron and press that over to the side. But I got it all laid out to where there's 5 strips and 8 different sets. You can see all 5 different fabrics in each one of these. That is what it's going to end up looking like. I have none that are the exact same. Now we're going to take a 5 set over to the machine and sew all of these together. Okay, so I've got all of my strip sets sewn together. Now we're going to subcut them. So I'm going to cut 4 at a time. You don't have to cut 4 at a time, and if you do, make sure you triple check to make sure you're cutting to the right size before you actually make the cut. Or at least I have to. Everything is going to get cut again after we do this, so it doesn't have to be completely perfect, but you want it pretty close. I'm going to cut them into 10.5-inch squares. Now we need to iron and get our white fabric ready to cut down. Okay, so now we're going to make some half square triangles. And so as I do each one, I'm going to mark it and then sew a 1/4 inch on either side of that line. So now I'm going to change out my 1/4 inch foot to this foot, which is also another type of 1/4 inch foot, and pedal to the metal. Okay, I'll be back after I chain piece all of these with that first stitch alongside that line that we drew on. Now we're just going to sew on the other side of that marked line. I don't know if you can see the stitches, they're right here, and then the line. And then we're just going to sew on the other side and keep them all together, because then you'd be able to just feed it right through. Now I'm just going to go through and cut each one of these squares apart. Grab my little cutting mat, line it up from corner to corner, and cut. So sneak peek of what it's going to look like. I'm going to cut all these and then I'll be back. Okay, so I've got this whole pile of triangles, I guess, but they're actually squares. That makes no sense. So I am going to press all of these to the dark side. Now we have our blocks made and they have to be squared up. That's a non-negotiable. You want to line this black line up with the seam. So at 9.5 is right here. And you want the excess to go over that 9.5 on this side and this side. And I'm going to cut this way and this way. And then rotate 180 degrees, set the ruler back down, only this time we're going to line up this diagonal line again, and the 9.5 over here and the 9.5 over here. And then cut the other 2 sides. All of the squares will be squared up to 9.5 inches. So now all of these are squared up and you get to lay out all of the fabric. And you don't have to go with the half square triangle layout that is in my pattern. You can go with whatever layout that you want. Okay, so I've got it all laid out how I want it. So it's going to be 7 across by 9 down. And So I'm going to sew the rows together and keep them all together, and then I will sew the rows all together to each other.